Hi friends, it's Em, and welcome back to another video, or welcome for the first time if you're new here. Today I'm going to be setting up my new bullet journal. I know most people set one up for January and July. I started mine last August and I was able to use it for an entire year because I was pretty minimal in how I used like monthly spreads or, having a bunch of spreads every single month that I would create. So that's why we're doing it in August instead of July. But the key here is that you can start a bullet journal whenever you want. You could start a bullet journal on a Wednesday, right? It doesn't have to be a new month. It doesn't have to be anything special, right? I decided here, right, that I wanted to do a little bit of watercolor, partially because one of my goals was this month was to learn how to watercolor, and I did kind of learn how to blend a little bit. I also learned that the brush that you use matters a lot, and I've been hearing that for forever, and it hadn't really sort of like crossed my mind until I was using one of those like water pens, and I realized I was like, this is putting so much water on the paper. This is not going to work for me. So now I have this brush, which I think I bought in a store in Massachusetts. I don't know. Usually I buy the things before I get like invested in the hobby, which is that's not the smart thing to do. You should get invested in the hobby first and then start buying expensive brushes and whatever. But that's beside the point. I am totally a complete and utter beginner here. So you'll see that there is so much water on the page. Also, I painted over my pencil with watercolor, which meant that I could not erase it. I learned for the next few pages. But it's kind of funny, right? Because I'm talking about beginnings and I'm like, yeah, it's the beginning of a new journal. It's the beginning of my watercolor journey. The beginning is today, and like you're going to make mistakes and you just kind of have to get over it. I kind of regret how I laid out this page a little bit, if only just because in my head, it was going to be a beautiful, just sort of like splash. And it didn't quite end up like that, which is why I went in and filled in this sort of side bits with some, I don't really know they're not really rectangles. They're just kind of like their own little splotches. You can also see that that my pigment managing is not great. Again, I'm still learning. I have no idea what I'm doing. But the key here is that I'm learning a little bit more every single time I do it. So eventually I will figure out how to get, the perfect amount of water and the perfect amount of pigment. But whatever. That's not a big deal. Another thing, because experimenting with watercolor was not enough for me, apparently. I wanted to be a little bit sadistic to myself, I guess. I'm also using stamps for the first time. So I'm using these are the Archer and Olive stamps. But I don't think that there's any, you can get your stamps from wherever. I'm also using a Tombow to just sort of manually put ink on the stamp rather than an ink pad. This sort of helps a little bit just with knowing where the ink is on the stamp. But it's also because I saw Erin Smith do it, and I want to do everything that she does. So I wanted to see how it went. And I'm not mad. And then it's just a classic Pentel Fude Touch on there. Just because I really like how it feels. It's a little messy when I'm doing it here. I play fast and loose with my hand lettering, as you know. Like you can see that the ends are not the same size. And, the stamps are not perfectly lined up. I don't care about that. Like, later in the video, I put a stamp on some watercolor that is still entirely too wet, and it sort of Bleeds isn't the right word because it did bleed through the paper too. Yeah, so it bled in more ways than one then. um, but I don't know, I got excited. I still need to clean my stamps. That's the problem with stamps, is that you do need to wash them after. I wish, it's like with people with makeup brushes, how they have makeup brush cleaners where you just put them in and like you spin a wheel and then all of a sudden they're clean. I wish they had that for stamps. Maybe they do. I don't know. But I did quite enjoy it. You'll also see what I'm doing here is that I wanted it to be kind of centered. So I put the two middle letters in first. Just so it would be somewhat centered. That's another common trick. But it is August. It's bananas. There are only, counting August, 5 months left in the year, which means that we're sort of getting into crunch time when it comes to annual goals. So you'll see later that I actually copy in my yearly goals to my planner because I don't have them written down anywhere else. They were just in my Notion, and I would constantly forget about them. And so I would be, going along, completing some monthly goals, and then I'd be like, oh, well, on my yearly goals, I wanted to learn the ukulele. I'm really running out of time on that one. But Gil got me a ukulele, and it's very nice and sweet, and I love it. And at one point when he first got it, I was on it. I was learning things. I was getting calluses. My fingertips hurt. So if anyone knows any good ways to quickly learn ukulele or to help with sort of like the calluses that you get, that would be very useful for me. Some other spreads that I'm adding here are movies to watch and games to play. I do think that under the movies, I might also include TV because I definitely meant it to be like media to watch. But once I put the stamps in, there wasn't room anymore. So I just kind of went, shit. And for games, that's board games, it's video games, it's computer games potentially. I don't know. I might want to get back into RuneScape, if you know what that is. I was playing that back in 7th grade. And the summer before college, I paid for a membership. I remember thinking, I was like, man, I have disposable income now, and this is what I am choosing to do. But this movies to watch list is also going to be really helpful because Gil and I have been doing a weekly movie night. So we can, when we're like, oh, what do you want to watch? Oh, I don't know. What do you want to watch? I can just look at this and say, oh, hey, we really wanted to watch the Barbie movie. We should go do that. So we're actually going to go see Barbie in like 2 weeks or so. The theaters just kind of freak me out a little bit since COVID. Because we used to be really into it. We would go to the movies at least once a month. But now we're just kind of, we dial it back. We wait for it to come out on streaming services because we have almost every streaming service. There's so many. But that's sort of where we're at. And in a similar vein, I feel like Gil and I, there's only 2 of us, so we buy all these really fun board games. We like to make sure that there's 2 players can play it by themselves. But sometimes for some of the more fun ones, like Captain Sonar, they're more fun with more people. So then for those, we're going to have to provide a little bit of pre-planning, right, to get enough players for it, which is totally fine. And I think we're about to flip a page, but when we get to it, I also have a list of book recommendations. And specifically, this is for when people tell me, hey, you should read this book, because usually if I haven't already read it, I go, oh, okay. And then it's out of sight, out of mind. It's out of my brain. I've completely forgotten everything. And so I thought, this would be really good because I know, when I go to book club, there are so many people, they're like, oh, have you read blah, blah, blah? Oh, I loved it. All that sort of stuff. I also really like the blending here, just because I got a nice mix of the spectra kind of on the way between this violet and magenta. I don't know if you can hear Gil downstairs very loudly taking the trash out. Oh my god. But I like it because I know, people have been telling me to read The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I know that my friend Jocelyn has wanted me to read Bend Toward the Sun for so long. Like, I think it's been over a year at this point that she has been recommending it. Like, anytime I say, hey, what book should I read? She recommends this book. And, oh god. And my friend Dan, I know that Dan's not listening to this. He is not subscribed to my channel. Has been trying to get me to read Red Rising for years, and it's on my list for the year. I'm going to read it this year, I hope. We'll see. But that's sort of like where we stand on this. I also really like, you guys know me. I like doing stuff in the center of the page and then having it branch out a little bit. So that's what I'm doing with book recs. I'm also making sure that my stamps are centered to the left and the right of the spine, right? They're not centered in any way, shape, or form, like horizontally. But that's sort of where we are with that. And thinking about, it is already August. This month has felt so crazy. It's the 2nd, right? Normally I try to get these up much earlier. I did not have the bandwidth to even edit this video until the 1st. And because it was watercolor and because I don't know how to do watercolor, right? It was extremely long drying. That's not even a sentence. I paused too much in the middle. It took a really long time to dry. That's what I'm trying to say. So I didn't make as many spreads as I wanted to, or as many as I thought I wanted to, because I think I can get by with just these spreads, at least for now, because I know that come January, right, I'm going to be making a new yearly goals setup, and I might want a new, let's say, I don't know, let's say my movie list gets completely populated and we watch all of them. Well, maybe I want a new one that says TV and movies. So this is kind of like my bare minimum, the things that I really wanted, and I'm going to see if there's anything I miss or like want in my next iteration when we get there. Now, will that be in 6 months or will that be in an entire year? I don't know, but I am really happy with how this turned out, and I hope that you are too. I hope you'll get a little more inspired to try new things in your planner. Go ahead and let me know what you want me to try next. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, happy planning.